The Great Hall of the Galactic Council filled with worried voices as beings from across the galaxy gathered for the most important meeting in their history. Ambassador Zethrix from the Altarian Federation stood at the center podium, her blue skin shining under the bright lights. Around her sat representatives from 47 different alien species, each one looking more concerned than the last. The air buzzed with strange sounds as different aliens spoke in their own languages. Some clicked, others whistled, and a few used mind talk that made the air feel heavy. But there was something wrong with this meeting. Everyone could see it. In the front section of the Great Hall, 25 seats sat empty. These were the human seats, and they had been empty for 6 long months. Not one human had been seen anywhere in the galaxy during that time. It was like they had all just disappeared into thin air. Dr. Korvax, a large reptile-like being with red scales, hit his fist on the table hard. The sound echoed through the hall and made everyone look at him. His yellow eyes burned with anger as he spoke. While we sit here and talk about missing humans, the Chaos Legion is attacking our worlds. They have taken 12 star systems in just 1 month. We are losing this war and losing it fast, the other aliens murmured among themselves. They all knew Dr. Korvax was right. Ever since the humans had vanished, everything had gone wrong. The Chaos Legion, an ancient enemy that came from the dark center of the galaxy, had been winning battle after battle. Before the humans disappeared, the galaxy had been safe. The Council forces had been strong and the enemy had been held back. But now everything was falling apart. Dr. Valen, a tall, thin being made of what looked like living crystal, stood up slowly. His voice sounded like wind chimes when he spoke. My friends, we must face the truth about our situation. The humans were not just another member of our alliance. They were the most important part of our defense against the Chaos Legion. He waved his hand and a huge picture appeared in the air above the center of the hall. It showed star maps and battle reports from the past 6 months. Red dots marked where the Council had lost battles. There were far too many red dots. Look at this data. Before the humans vanished, we won 7 out of every 10 battles against the Chaos Legion. Since they disappeared, we have only won 1 battle out of every 10. A small green alien with big ears raised her hand. But why were the humans so important? They were just one species among many. Surely we can fight without them. Dr. Valen shook his crystal head sadly. That is where you are wrong, Commander Zelda. The humans were special in ways we never fully understood. When we fought the Chaos Legion using normal tactics, we lost. The enemy could predict what we would do because we always did the same things. We formed neat lines, we followed the rules of war, and we acted in ways that made sense. He pointed to another part of the star map. But humans never did what made sense. They would attack when they should have run away. They would defend planets that had no strategic value just because people lived there. They would charge into impossible battles and somehow win them. The Chaos Legion could never predict what humans would do because humans themselves did not know what they would do until they did it. Ambassador Zethrix nodded her head in agreement. The humans called it thinking outside the box. We called it madness. But it worked. Their crazy plans and wild attacks confused the Chaos Legion. While the enemy tried to figure out what the humans were doing, our other forces could attack in normal ways. In the back of the hall, a robot-like being with glowing blue eyes spoke up. Unit designation Nexus 7 requests clarification. If humans were so valuable, why did they leave during our time of greatest need? This action does not match their previous behavior patterns. The hall went quiet. This was the question everyone wanted to ask, but nobody wanted to say out loud. Why had the humans abandoned them right when they needed help the most? Dr. Valen looked at his crystal hands for a moment before speaking. We have been investigating the human disappearance since it happened. What we found is very strange. The humans did not just leave, they all vanished at exactly the same time. Every human in every part of the galaxy just stopped existing at the same moment. Their ships were found floating empty in space. Their colonies were found with food still warm on the tables but no people anywhere. He made the star map change to show the human home system called Sol. The picture showed empty planets and silent space stations. Even Earth, their homeworld, is completely empty. Our scout ships found cities full of cars and buildings but no humans at all. It is as if they all just stepped out of reality itself. Commander Zelda's big ears twitched with worry. Could the Chaos Legion have done something to them? Maybe they were all killed or captured. We thought of that, said Dr. Valen. But there are no signs of battle anywhere. No destroyed buildings, no weapon marks, nothing. And the Chaos Legion seems just as surprised by the human disappearance as we are. In fact, they have been much more active since the humans vanished, as if they were waiting for this to happen. Admiral Korvac stood up again, his red scales darkening with anger. It does not matter why they left. What matters is that they are gone, and we are losing. The Chaos Legion grows stronger every day. Their living ships are eating entire planets and turning them into more weapons. If we do not find a way to stop them soon, there will be no galaxy left to save. The truth of his words settled over the hall like a dark cloud. Without the humans and their wild, unpredictable ways, the Galactic Council was no match for an enemy that fed on chaos and madness. The very thing that made the Chaos Legion strong, their ability to bring disorder and confusion, was what the humans had been best at fighting against. As the meeting went on, none of the aliens knew that deep in a hidden place far from normal space, thousands of humans floated in special chambers. Among them was Jake Morrison, a brave pilot who had fought many battles against the Chaos Legion. His body was changing in ways that no one could imagine, preparing for a war that would decide the fate of everything in the galaxy. The humans had not abandoned their friends. They were becoming something new, something that could fight the coming darkness in ways that no one could predict. 3 weeks had passed since the emergency meeting at the Galactic Council, and the situation had become much worse than anyone had imagined. The Chaos Legion was not just winning battles anymore. They were destroying the very idea of order itself. Their strange living ships moved through space like giant sea creatures, eating planets and star systems and turning everything they touched into more weapons. For their endless army, Captain, Lisa Barnes floated peacefully in a special sleeping chamber deep inside a secret research station that existed between dimensions. She had no idea that her last report before the humans disappeared had become the most important document in the galaxy. In that report, she had written something that now seemed like a prophecy. The Chaos Legion does not just fight wars, it eats order itself and turns everything into madness. Only something just as crazy and unpredictable can fight against it. On the war planet called Nexus Prime, General Thyman of the Crystal People stood in front of dozens of floating screens that showed battles happening all across the galaxy. His crystal body reflected the red lights from the warning signals, making him look like he was on fire. Every screen showed the same thing: Council forces running away from Chaos Legion attacks. The enemy was not just beating them in fights, they were making reality itself break down wherever they went. "Our fleets retreat on every front," General Tymon said to his war council, his voice sounding like breaking glass. "The Legion is not following any rules of war that we understand. They attack from directions that should not exist. Their weapons hurt our ships in ways that our science cannot explain. Worst of all, they are changing the space around them so that our normal tactics stop working." A bird-like alien with bright red feathers raised one wing to speak. "General, our pilots report that when they get close to Legion ships, they start to forget how to work together. Squadron leaders give orders that make no sense. Formations break apart for no reason. It is as if the enemy's mere presence makes organized thinking impossible." General Tymon nodded sadly. This was the real problem they faced. The Chaos Legion did not just have powerful weapons and strong armor. They carried with them a field of pure disorder that made cooperation and planning very difficult. Armies that had worked together for hundreds of years would suddenly start fighting each other when exposed to this chaos field. In a private meeting room deep underground, Ambassador Zethrix gathered the inner circle, the 5 most trusted leaders of the Galactic Council. The room was protected by the strongest shields known to science, but even here they could feel the weight of the war pressing down on them. The blue lights in the room flickered sometimes, as if even the electricity was being affected by the growing chaos in the galaxy. "I have called you here because we have discovered something about the human disappearance," Ambassador Zethrix said, her tentacles moving nervously. "Our best spies have found information that changes everything we thought we knew about why the humans left." Dr. Valen, the crystal scientist, activated a secure computer that could only be used by the inner circle. "We have been investigating human facilities that were abandoned when they disappeared. Most of their records were wiped clean, but we found some hidden files that survived. They mentioned something called Project Genesis." The other leaders leaned forward with interest. Project Genesis was a name that had appeared in a few intelligence reports over the years, but no one had known what it meant. The humans had always been secretive about their most important research projects. "What did these files say about Genesis?" asked Admiral Korvax, his red scales bright with curiosity. Dr. Valen made the computer show a series of coded messages that had been partially decoded. "From what we can understand, Project Genesis was some kind of evolution program. The humans were working on changing themselves into something new and more powerful." The files mentioned terms like genetic enhancement, consciousness expansion, and dimensional adaptation. The room went very quiet as the leaders tried to understand what this meant. If the humans had been working on changing themselves, then maybe they had not been captured or killed. Maybe they had left on purpose to complete their transformation. "There is more," Dr. Valen continued. "The timing of their disappearance matches exactly with the final phase of Project Genesis, according to these files. It appears that all humans were moved to a secret location to undergo some kind of massive change to their bodies and minds." Ambassador Zethrix's tentacles coiled with worry. But why would they do this now in the middle of a war? Why would they leave us to face the Chaos Legion alone if they were developing new ways to fight? Admiral Korvax hit the table with his fist, making the metal bend. Maybe they planned to abandon us all along. Maybe humans were never really our allies but were just using us for their own purposes. But Dr. Valen shook his crystal head. "I do not think that is right. The humans lost many of their own people fighting the Chaos Legion. They spent enormous amounts of resources helping us build defenses. If they wanted to abandon us, they could have done it years ago when the fighting first started." A new voice spoke from the shadows in the corner of the room. It was Agent Morse, a spy who worked for the Council's intelligence service. She was one of the few beings who could sneak around without being detected by any known sensors. "I have been investigating the human disappearance using methods that are not officially approved. What I found suggests that the humans did not abandon us. They sacrificed themselves for us." Everyone turned to look at her as she stepped into the light. Her face was covered by a mask that hid her species, but her voice carried the weight of terrible knowledge. "The Chaos Legion is not just a random enemy that appeared from the Galactic Center. According to the deepest intelligence files, they are part of something much older and more dangerous. They are the physical form of entropy itself, the force that makes everything in the universe break down and fall apart." She activated her own computer and showed them star maps that were marked with classified information. "The Legion has been sleeping in the Galactic Center for millions of years. Something woke them up about 50 years ago, and they have been growing stronger ever since. Normal weapons and normal tactics cannot defeat them, because they are not really alive in the way we understand life. They are pure chaos given form." Dr. Valen studied the new information carefully. If this is true, then the humans discovered something about the Legion that we did not know. Maybe Project Genesis was their attempt to create beings who could fight chaos with chaos. Agent Morse nodded. "That matches with what I found in the deepest human files. They called it fighting fire with fire. The idea was to make themselves partially chaotic, while still remaining human enough to care about saving the galaxy." As the leaders of the Inner Circle discussed this new information, they did not know that their theories were exactly right. In the secret Genesis facility that existed outside normal space and time, thousands of humans were undergoing changes that would have seemed impossible just months before. Alex Carter, a former council commander, floated in a chamber filled with strange energy that was rewriting his genetic code and expanding his mind beyond normal human limits. The process was dangerous and painful, but it was also necessary. The humans had discovered that the only way to defeat pure chaos was to become beings who could understand and control chaos while still fighting for order and peace. They were becoming living bridges between two opposite forces, and when they returned to the galaxy, they would be unlike anything that had ever existed before. The question was whether they would still be human enough to care about saving their former allies, or whether the chaos they were absorbing would change them into something completely different. The darkness of space near the Centaurian colonies was suddenly torn apart by a massive rift that should not have been able to exist. From this impossible tear in reality emerged the largest and most terrifying ship that anyone in the galaxy had ever seen. The Entropy Crown, flagship of the Chaos Legion, was not really a ship at all but a living nightmare made of twisted metal, dark energy, and pure malevolent will. Its very presence made the space around it bend and warp in ways that hurt to look at. As soon as the Entropy Crown appeared, the beautiful crystal worlds of the Centaurian system began to change in horrible ways. The perfect geometric cities that had taken thousands of years to grow started melting and reshaping themselves into twisted spires that defied all laws of physics. The crystal beings who lived there screamed in harmonies that shattered windows across entire continents as their ordered minds were invaded by pure chaos. High Admiral Zephon, the leader of the Chaos Legion's attack forces, was not a being that could be described in normal words. He existed as a shifting mass of dark energy that sometimes took the shape of various creatures but never stayed the same for more than a few moments. When he spoke, his voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once, reaching every communication device in the galaxy whether it was turned on or not. People of the ordered galaxy, his voice echoed through space itself. You have built your civilizations on the lie that structure and rules can last forever. But we are here to show you the truth that lies beneath your pretty cities and careful plans. Order is just a temporary pause in the eternal dance of chaos. Your human pets understood this truth and ran away rather than face it. Now you will learn what they already knew, that in the end everything falls apart. On Nexus Prime, the Council's military headquarters, alarm sirens wailed as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Chaos Legion was not attacking in the slow, methodical way that most enemies did. Instead, they struck everywhere at once, appearing from dimensional rifts that opened without warning in the heart of the most protected systems. General Timon stood in the center of the war room, his crystal body reflecting the red emergency lights as he tried to coordinate a defense against an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Around him, dozens of military officers from different species worked frantically at their control stations, but their usual calm efficiency was breaking down under the stress of fighting an incomprehensible foe. Report from the Reptilian Navy, called out Commander Scales, his green skin pale with exhaustion. Our geometric battle formations are collapsing as soon as they encounter Legion forces. Ships that have worked together for decades are suddenly unable to coordinate their movements. Captains are giving contradictory orders, and some crews are refusing to follow commands entirely. Another officer, this one from the insectoid swarm, clicked his mandibles in distress as he delivered his report. The hive mind connection that allows our forces to act as one is being disrupted by the Legion's presence. Individual ships are breaking away from the swarm and acting on their own. Some are even attacking other swarm vessels. General Timon felt a cold fear settle in his crystal heart as he realized what was happening. The Chaos Legion was not just defeating their forces, it was turning their greatest strengths into weaknesses. Species that had evolved to work together perfectly were losing the ability to cooperate when exposed to the chaos fields that surrounded Legion ships. Dr. Valen burst into the war room carrying a portable computer filled with new analysis data. His crystal form was flickering with stress, something that only happened when his people were under extreme mental pressure. General, I have completed my study of the Legion's attack patterns, and the results are worse than we feared. He activated a holographic display that showed the recent battles from a tactical perspective. The Chaos Legion is not attacking randomly as we first thought. They are specifically targeting the organizational structures that made our alliance with the humans so effective. They are destroying communication networks, command hierarchies, and supply lines in ways that maximize confusion and discord. The hologram showed how Legion forces would ignore valuable military targets to instead attack seemingly unimportant communication relays and coordination centers. It is as if they know exactly what kind of ordered thinking they need to disrupt to make us helpless. Commander Theris of the Avian Fleet landed on the central platform, her beautiful feathers now blackened and burned from exposure to chaos energy. Her report was delivered in the musical language of her people, but the translation computers conveyed her despair clearly enough. I have seen what happens when our forces are exposed to the Legion's reality warping fields for extended periods. It is not just that we forget how to work together. We forget why we were working together in the first place. She activated her own display showing recordings from recent battles. Watch this footage from the defense of Altair 7. See how our pilots start the battle fighting as a coordinated wing, but as the engagement continues and they are exposed to more chaos energy, they begin acting like individual hunters competing with each other, rather than allies fighting for a common cause. The recording was painful to watch. What started as a textbook defensive formation gradually dissolved into a confused melee, where Council forces were as likely to interfere with each other as they were to attack the enemy. Worse, some pilots seemed to completely forget what they were fighting for and simply flew around in random patterns until their ships ran out of fuel. General Thymon realized with growing horror that this was not just a military defeat they were facing. It was the complete breakdown of civilization itself. The chaos fields did not just disrupt technology and tactics. They attacked the very concepts of cooperation and shared purpose that made advanced society possible. In the hidden Genesis facility that existed between dimensions, the final stages of human transformation were reaching completion. Kelly Brooks, who had once been a simple fighter pilot, now floated in a transformation chamber as her consciousness expanded beyond anything that normal humans could experience. Her genetic code had been rewritten with patterns that could exist in both order and chaos simultaneously, allowing her to think in ways that were both completely logical and utterly unpredictable. Dr. Richard Stone, the lead scientist of Project Genesis, monitored the final transformations with a mixture of excitement and terror. The humans in the chambers were no longer entirely human, but they were not entirely something else either. They had become living bridges between order and chaos, beings who could embrace madness while still fighting for the things they loved. The integration is complete, he reported to his team of enhanced scientists who had undergone earlier versions of the transformation process. All subjects show successful merger of chaotic elements with human adaptability and creativity. They are becoming exactly what we hoped, beings who can fight the Legion on its own terms while still caring about protecting the galaxy. He looked at the readings that showed brain activity patterns unlike anything in known science. They will be able to think like the Chaos Legion, to understand chaos and use it as a weapon, while still maintaining the human qualities of determination and love that drive us to protect others. When they wake up, they will be the galaxy's only hope against an enemy that feeds on the destruction of order itself. The Genesis facility began to shift and move through dimensions as the final phase of the project prepared to begin. Soon the enhanced humans would return to normal space, but they would return as something that had never existed before. Beings of controlled chaos who could fight fire with fire while still remembering why the fight was worth winning. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's greatest strength was not their ability to create order, but their ability to find purpose and meaning, even in the midst of complete madness. Space itself seemed to fold and twist as the Genesis facility materialized in normal reality, without any warning. The massive station appeared near Nexus Prime in a flash of light that temporarily blinded every sensor array within a dozen star systems. The facility's design was impossible to understand. It looked like it existed in several dimensions at the same time, with parts of its structure fading in and out of visibility, as if it could not decide whether it wanted to be real or not. On board the Genesis facility, Colonel Nathan Cross stepped out of his transformation chamber and felt the universe in ways that no normal human had ever experienced. His eyes, which had once been simple brown, now held depths that seemed to contain both the rigid patterns of mathematics and the wild swirls of complete randomness. Behind him, 10,000 other enhanced humans emerged from their own chambers, each one forever changed by the Genesis process but still recognizably human in the ways that mattered most. Nathan looked at his hands and watched as they seemed to flicker between being solid, matter, and being made of pure energy. The transformation had worked better than anyone had dared to hope. He could feel chaos flowing through his mind like a river of liquid lightning, but instead of driving him insane, it made him more creative and unpredictable while still allowing him to care deeply about protecting the innocent beings of the galaxy. This is Colonel Nathan Cross, of the Human Ascension Corps, calling all Council forces. Throughout the galaxy, he spoke into a communication device that should not have been able to reach across such vast distances instantly, but his words appeared simultaneously on every ship, every station, and every planet where Council forces were fighting for their lives. We have returned to help you, but we are no longer the humans you remember. We have become something new so that we can fight an enemy that cannot be defeated by normal means. Prepare yourselves for Operation Last Stand. The reaction across the galaxy was immediate and confused. On Nexus Prime, General Thymon's crystal form brightened with surprise and hope as human ships began appearing throughout Council territory. But these ships were unlike anything he had seen before. They moved through space in ways that defied physics, sometimes seeming to be in multiple places at once, and their hulls were covered with patterns that hurt to look at directly. Admiral Korvax, monitoring the situation from his command ship, could barely believe what his sensors were telling him. The human vessels are not using any form of faster-than-light travel that we recognize. They appear to be stepping sideways through reality itself, moving from one location to another without crossing the space in between. Dr. Valen, working frantically to analyze the returning human forces, discovered something that filled him with both wonder and concern. These are still humans, but they have been fundamentally altered at the genetic and consciousness level. My instruments detect that they are somehow existing in a state of controlled chaos. They are both completely organized and completely random at the same time. The first test of the new human capabilities came when Captain Sarah Williams, commanding the transformed vessel Harmony of Paradox, led an attack against a Chaos Legion invasion fleet that was destroying the mining colonies of the Outer Rim. Her ship approached the enemy formation in a way that made no tactical sense, flying in spirals and loops that should have made her an easy target. But when the Legion ships tried to predict her movements and target her vessel, they found that their chaos-enhanced sensors could not lock onto something that was just as chaotic as they were. Sarah's ship seemed to dance through their weapons fire, moving in patterns that were both completely random and perfectly calculated to avoid damage. All human ships, "Begin Phase 2 of the attack," Sarah commanded, and her enhanced crew responded with movements that seemed choreographed, despite never having been practiced. They worked together with perfect coordination, while simultaneously acting in ways that no enemy could predict. It was as if they had learned to be organized chaos, creating order through the use of randomness itself. The Chaos Legion ships, for the first time in their long existence, found themselves confused and outmaneuvered. They were used to fighting enemies who either used rigid tactics that could be predicted, or who fell into complete disorder when exposed to chaos fields. But the enhanced humans were doing something that should have been impossible. They were using chaos as a tool while still maintaining clear goals and purposes. During the battle, Lieutenant Danny Rivers led a boarding party against a Legion vessel using tactics that made the enemy completely unable to respond effectively. His team would phase through the ship's hull at one location, attack critical systems, then disappear and reappear somewhere else entirely. The Legion defenders, who were used to spreading chaos and confusion among their enemies, found themselves on the receiving end of attacks that were both utterly unpredictable and devastatingly effective. The humans have returned, but they are something beyond what we knew before, reported Commander Theris as she watched the battle from her observation post. They move like the Legion forces do, with the same disregard for normal physics, but they are still fighting to protect the innocent. They have become chaos in service of order. The tide of the war began to shift as enhanced humans appeared on battlefront after battlefront across the galaxy. Each engagement showed the same pattern. The Legion forces, which had been winning easily against normal Council troops, suddenly found themselves facing opponents who could match their chaotic nature while still fighting with human determination and creativity. On the Chaos Legion flagship Entropy Crown, High Admiral Zephon watched these developments with something that might have been concern if his species had been capable of normal emotions. The swirling mass of dark energy that made up his form twisted in patterns that suggested deep thought. These humans have done something unprecedented. He communicated to his sub-commanders through channels that existed outside normal space-time. They have somehow merged order and chaos without destroying themselves. This should not be possible. Chaos always consumes order, and order always tries to eliminate chaos. Yet these beings seem to exist as both simultaneously. His flagship's living computers, which were made from compressed reality itself, provided analysis that confirmed his fears. The enhanced humans are not fighting against chaos. They are using chaos as a weapon while still maintaining their essential humanity. They have found a way to think like us while still caring about things like protecting the weak and preserving beauty. This makes them extremely dangerous to our cause. Back on Nexus Prime, the Council leadership gathered to witness something that they had thought impossible just days before: victories against the Chaos Legion. General Thymon's crystal form reflected the green lights of success reports flooding in from across the galaxy. For the first time in months, Council forces were not just surviving, but actually winning battles. The enhanced humans are stabilizing reality wherever they fight, Dr. Valen reported with wonder in his crystalline voice. Their presence seems to create zones where both order and chaos can exist without destroying each other. Within these zones, our normal forces can function effectively, while the human ships use chaotic tactics against the enemy. Ambassador Zethrix watched the tactical displays with a mixture of relief and sadness. The humans had saved them all, but at a cost that was only beginning to become clear. These enhanced beings were still recognizably human in their dedication to protecting others, but they had become something alien and incomprehensible in their methods and capabilities. Nathan Cross appeared on the main communication screen, his image flickering between looking perfectly normal and looking like a living equation made of light and shadow. Council leaders, we are winning the battles, but the war is far from over. The Chaos Legion has a source of power at the Galactic Center that must be dealt with directly. We will need to take the fight to the heart of chaos itself if we want to end this threat permanently. As he spoke, space around Nexus Prime filled with human ships that defied description, vessels that seemed to be built from crystallized mathematics and controlled randomness, crewed by beings who had sacrificed their normal humanity to become something capable of fighting the unfightable. The galaxy's salvation had arrived, but it came in a form that was both wonderful and terrifying to behold. The final battle of the war began at the very center of the galaxy, where the massive black hole that held everything together had become something far more dangerous than anyone had imagined. The prime entropy, the source and master of all Chaos Legion forces, had wrapped itself around the black hole like a living disease. It fed on the incredible gravitational forces and used them to pump pure chaos throughout the galaxy like a cosmic heart beating with the rhythm of destruction. The creature was impossible to describe in words that normal minds could understand. It existed as pure anti-order, a living negation of everything that was structured, predictable, or beautiful. Looking at it directly caused madness in normal beings. But the enhanced humans could see it clearly because they had learned to think with chaos as well as order. To them, it looked like a massive spider made of broken mathematics and screaming darkness, with legs that reached out through dimensions to control its legion forces across the galaxy. Captain Danny Rivers led the human assault force aboard the transcendent battleship Paradox Engine, a vessel that had been built using principles that combined human engineering with chaos technology. The ship existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously and could attack from angles that did not exist in normal space. As they approached the Galactic Center, Danny addressed both his enhanced crew and the Council forces that had volunteered to join the final assault. "We are about to enter the heart of madness itself," he said, his voice carrying clearly through communication systems that worked by bending reality instead of using radio waves. "The enemy we face is not just another alien species or even another form of life. It is the living embodiment of entropy, the force that makes everything in the universe break down and fall apart. But we have something it does not understand. We have chosen to embrace chaos while still remembering why order is worth fighting for." Battle that followed was unlike anything that had ever happened in the history of the galaxy. The enhanced humans fought using tactics that seemed to change the laws of physics themselves. Colonel Nancy Hughes led boarding parties that phased through enemy hulls by convincing reality that solid matter was just a suggestion. Commander Greg Taylor's fighter squadron attacked from directions that included up, down, left, right, and several others that did not have names in any language. The Chaos Legion forces found themselves facing an enemy that was just as chaotic as they were, but still fought with purpose and coordination. For millions of years, they had been the only beings in the galaxy who could use pure randomness as a weapon. Now they were being outfought by creatures who had learned to be more chaotic than chaos itself while still caring about protecting the innocent. The Prime Entropy's voice reached across all dimensions as it realized that its perfect plan was falling apart. "You think you have won by becoming like us, but you do not understand what you have done to yourselves. You have embraced chaos, and chaos always consumes those who touch it. You will become us in the end, and then there will be no difference between order and disorder." But Nathan Cross, who had become the focal point of the enhanced human consciousness, replied with words that shook the foundations of existence itself. "You are wrong about what we have become. We did not just embrace chaos. We learned to choose when to be chaotic and when to be ordered. We can be completely unpredictable when we need to fight you, and we can be perfectly organized when we need to protect others. That choice, that free will to decide between order and chaos, is something you never understood about humanity. As he spoke, Nathan and his fellow enhanced humans began to execute the final phase of their plan. Instead of trying to destroy the prime entropy, which would have been impossible since it was a fundamental force of the universe, they surrounded it with their own consciousness. Each human became a living seal that contained chaos without eliminating it, creating a prison made of controlled randomness and purposeful order. The process was incredibly dangerous and required each human to sacrifice their individual existence while still maintaining their essential humanity. They became living equations that balanced chaos and order, existing forever as guardians of the space between madness and structure. Their consciousness merged into a network that could contain the prime entropy, while still allowing controlled amounts of chaos to exist throughout the galaxy. "We understand now what must be done," Nathan said as his physical form began to dissolve into pure energy, while his mind expanded to cosmic proportions. "Perfect order is just as dangerous as pure chaos. The galaxy needs both forces to exist, but they must be kept in balance. We humans will become the guardians of that balance, ensuring that neither force can destroy the civilizations that depend on both stability and change." As the enhanced humans completed their transformation into cosmic guardians, the Chaos Legion forces throughout the galaxy simply stopped fighting. Without their source of pure chaos to drive them, they became manageable opponents that could be defeated by normal military forces. The living ships became just ships, the reality-warping weapons became just weapons, and the fields of madness that had made organized resistance impossible simply faded away. The prime entropy found itself trapped within a framework of human consciousness that was both completely chaotic and perfectly ordered. It could still exist and even influence the galaxy, but only in ways that the human guardians allowed. The balance between creation and destruction was now maintained by beings who understood both forces intimately but chose to serve the cause of protecting life and beauty. Nathan's final message reached every conscious being in the galaxy as his individual identity merged with the cosmic guardian network. "The war is over, but our watch has just begun. We humans will remain here at the galactic center, maintaining the balance between order and chaos for as long as the galaxy exists. Call on us if this balance is ever threatened again, but know that we are no longer the species you once knew. We have become something beyond normal life so that normal life can continue to exist and grow." The human fleet established permanent stations around the contained prime entropy, their crews volunteering for eternal duty as wardens of cosmic balance. They would ensure that neither perfect order nor pure chaos could ever again threaten the diverse civilizations that filled the galaxy. The individual humans who had undergone the Genesis transformation were gone, but their essential humanity lived on in their dedication to protecting others. In the council chambers on Nexus Prime, Ambassador Zethrix delivered the final report to the assembled representatives of 47 species. "Humanity has saved us all, but they have paid a price that we are only beginning to understand. They have evolved beyond our ability to relate to them, while still remaining committed to our protection. The age of human council partnership has ended, but the age of human guardianship has begun." Years passed, and the galaxy healed from the wounds of the Chaos War. New alliances formed between species that had learned to appreciate both order and controlled chaos. Technologies advanced as civilizations learned to use small amounts of chaos energy to make their innovations more creative and flexible. Art and music flourished as artists discovered that perfect order was beautiful, but perfect order mixed with just a little randomness was sublime. Sometimes, when reality itself seemed to be under threat, human ships would appear from the spaces between dimensions. They would resolve whatever crisis was happening using methods that defied explanation, then vanish again into the cosmic balance they were sworn to maintain. The Council built monuments to honor their lost allies, never knowing that every human they remembered was still alive in a form beyond normal comprehension. And at the Galactic Center, Nathan Cross and his fellow Guardians maintained their eternal vigil. They were no longer human in any way that normal beings could understand, but they retained the essential human spark that made them care about protecting the innocent and preserving beauty. They had become living proof that even in a universe governed by entropy and chaos, conscious beings could choose to create meaning and purpose through their actions and sacrifices. The galaxy was safe, forever changed by the sacrifice of a species that had learned to embrace chaos while never forgetting why order was worth fighting for. In the end, Humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy was not their technology or their military prowess, but their ability to find hope and purpose even in the midst of impossible circumstances. They had become guardians of the balance that allowed all other forms of life to flourish, and they would continue that watch for as long as stars burned in the darkness of space.